There are two ways that Hashem can punish us, and we can choose which way we want. The one is through pain. Hashem brings discomfort. Hashem brings a certain amount of suffering, discomfort, pain. And if we're thoughtful and if we're reflective, we look at what's happening in our lives, we identify the discomfort, and using the principle of midah keneged midah, we assume that there's some kind of correlation between what Hashem is doing to us and what we did to deserve it. And we figure out what we've done wrong and we do tshuva. That's the one route. But there's another form of punishment, and that is where Hashem punishes us with shame. Shame is an emotional and a spiritual discomfort. Pain is a physical discomfort. And we can choose which one we want. We can influence the way Hashem judges us. We can influence whether Hashem responds to our wrongdoing, because we've all done things wrong, and yes, we're going to do tshuva on Rosh HaShana Yom Kippur. But how well are we going to do tshuva? We'll do our best. But are we really spending the next few days studying Hilchot Tshuva? Are we going through all of the Rambam, all the Gemaras on tshuva? Are we going through Shari Tshuva of Rabbeinu Yonah? So just as if you don't learn Hilchot Shabbat, there's not much chance that we're keeping Shabbat properly. We're keeping Shabbat partially. But as you learn Hilchot Shabbat, you realize the things you've been doing wrong. So if you haven't learned Hilchot Tshuva, the chances that we'll be doing tshuva right are very slim. We'll do our best, and Hashem will hopefully accept our best efforts. But there are things we'll miss out. There are things we won't do as completely as we might want to do. And so there is inevitably consequence. Hashem is judging us. It's Yom Hadin. And there are things, if we are things we've done during the year and earlier in our lives for which we haven't done proper tshuva, there's a consequence for that. Is the consequence going to be pain, or is the consequence going to be shame? That's something we can choose, and let's understand that a little bit better. In one of the Slichot, we say, Meshoch hastecha liyodecha kel kano v'nokem. It's a combination of two different psukim. One is a pasuk from Tehillim, one is a pasuk from Nahum. Draw over those who know you, your thread of chesed, Hashem. Treat us with kindness, O God, who is a vengeful, punishing God. What does that mean? Treat us with chesed, you vengeful punishing God? What does it mean, and how do we put it together? The Kedushas Levi, one of the early Hasidic authorities, explains that Hashem is a kel kano v'nokem. Hashem is vengeful in the sense that He doesn't forgo. If people have done something wrong, there's consequence for what we've done. We can do tshuva, but if we don't do tshuva, He doesn't forgo. We are accountable, we're held accountable for everything that we do, both for the good and for the bad. The mitzvahs that we do, we get schar for. The averot that we do, we're punished for. And it's a chesed to be punished so that we get cleansed from the wrong that we've done during the year. So Hashem is a kel kano v'nokem. But what is meshoch chastecha liyodecha? Explains the Kedushas Levi, Hashem can punish us with chesed. There's a different form of punishment. Not all punishment is discomfort. Not all punishment is painful. There's another kind of punishment. And we're asking Hashem to punish us with chesed, with kindness, not with pain. We're asking for shame, not for pain. Where's the shame? What's the punishment in kindness? Yes, we're saying, Hashem, you're a kel kano v'nokem. We know you're vengeful and you will judge and you're demanding and you hold us accountable. Treat us with kindness. Where does that make sense? That statement of the Kedushas Levi is based on a Baal Shem Tov who talks about another pasuk that we use over the Yom Kippur. Kel nekamot Hashem, kel nekamot v'fiyah. We talk about, again, the God of vengeance, the God of judgment, the God who holds us accountable. Kel nekamot. But we use the word Hashem, Yud-Ke, Vav-Ke. We don't say Elokim. Normally when we talk about God as judge, and in terms of punishment and vengefulness, we talk about Elokim. Here we don't talk about Elokim, we talk about Yud-Ke, Vav-Ke, Hashem. And the Baal Shem Tov explains in the same thing, that sometimes Hashem punishes us with kindness, not with pain. How does He do that? How can kindness be painful? How can kindness be punishment? Normally we're accustomed to looking, if Hashem is good to us, we've had bracha and we've had atzlocha, we assume that everything's good, that Hashem is smiling upon us. Not so necessarily. It could be that things are going really well for us and that it's a form of punishment. Why? How? There's a very beautiful explanation that's given by Mordechai Goldstein. Mordechai Goldstein played an important part. He was a big Talmid Chacham, played a very important part in the Baal Tshuva movement and opened and established the Yeshivat HaTfutzot on Har Tzion in Yerushalayim. Some of you might remember it. It's still there, but it's a different kind of yeshiva today. But it started off as one of the first Baal Tshuva yeshivas long before Sameach and Eish HaTorah and any of those. He was one of the early pioneers in the Baal Tshuva movement. And he explains the meeting of Yosef's brothers with Yosef. We know part of Yosef's intention was to put his brothers through trials and tribulations, to give them punishment, to be nokem, to punish them, not just to get it off his chest, but to be nokem so that they would do proper tshuva, so that they would understand what they did. They would understand and be confronted with the truth of their actions and do tshuva, because they did the worst kind of avera, in a sense, the avera which you believe is a mitzvah. There are averot we do sometimes, and we know there are averot and we do tshuva for them, but often we believe we're doing the right thing and we're not doing the right thing. We're acting l'shem shamayim, we're doing it l'shem shamayim, but really we're not. Really we're doing it we're hurting people, we're damaging people, whatever the case may be. And in the case of Yosef and these brothers, the brothers believed that they were doing the right thing. They sat down and figured out al pi halacha what had to be done with Yosef. They felt Yosef was a threat to their spiritual existence, and they did what they believed needed to be done, and they believed they did the right thing. That's why vayeshvu lechalachem, after they threw him into the pit, they sat down and had a sudas mitzvah. They felt they'd done a mitzvah. They'd moved him out of the way. They didn't feel any embarrassment. That was the real problem that Yosef is trying to fix through the interaction with them when they come back to Egypt looking for food. And he puts them through all of that and makes them acknowledge and relive and feel the wrong of what they did, and then to be confronted with the fact that this man who's saving your life is in fact Yosef, your brother who you sold. That's the moment that he brings them back to a true realization of what it is they've done. But what does he say to them? He kind of spoils it at the climax. And he says, Ve'ata, now, al te'atzvu, don't be sad. Sees they're dejected, they're terribly sad of what they've done, the terrible things they've done. Va'al yichar be'einechem, and don't get angry. Ki mechartem oti heina, that you don't be angry with yourselves, don't beat yourselves up, because you sold me here. Ki lemichya shelachani elokim lifnechem. You were acting as God's agents. You thought it was all you're doing, but this was Hashem's plan. And Hashem sent me to Mitzrayim to be able to provide food for you in a time of need. And you were the agents of making that happen, so don't feel bad. What do you mean don't feel bad? So why have you put them through all this? You've put them through all this tzorah, and then you say, and don't feel bad about it, it's okay. Imagine you're scolding a child who's done something wrong, and you're talking to the child, and you're saying what a terrible thing you did, and how could you do that? And the child starts crying, and you say, don't cry, it's okay, it's all right, it was Hashem, it wasn't even you. What's the point? What are you doing? You're messing up the whole educational moment. Explains Reb Mordechai Goldstein that what he was doing, what Yosef was doing, was punishing them with kindness. Because Yosef knew who he was dealing with. He was dealing with the sons of Yaakov. He was dealing with the Shvatim. He was dealing with people who were super sensitive. And when he responds to their cruelty with an act of kindness, that is more punishing than any punishment could possibly be. When you believe you deserve punishment, and the person who you wronged treats you magnanimously and kindly, that's the worst feeling of all. That's emotional punishment. If he would have locked them up in prison, that would have been physical punishment. If he would have given them malchus, if he would have beaten them, that would have been physical punishment. If he would have burnt them at the stake, that would have been physical punishment. He gives them emotional punishment. He responds to them with chesed, with kindness, with love, and with concern. And for a sensitive person, that's the most terrible thing. For an insensitive person, it doesn't work. An insensitive person, you do something wrong and the other person treats you kindly, you say, he's such a fool. He had a chance to get back at me and he doesn't take it. He's such a weakling. But a sensitive person says, this is too terrible to bear. I deserve to be treated so badly. I deserve to be punished. And instead, what is this person doing? He's treating me magnanimously. He's treating me with kindness. What can I do to this person? How can I ever get this right? How can I ever fix this? How can I ever repair? It's a terrible feeling. And Mordechai Goldstein proves it from the Posuk in Vayechi. that Rashi has a difficulty with, but with his explanation it resolves Rashi's difficulty. Vayiru achei Yosef ki met avihem, and this brother saw Yaakov had died, and now they're worried. Vayomru lu yistameni Yosef. Now Yosef is going to hate us. All this time our father was alive, Yosef treated us kindly. The reason he treated us kindly was not to hurt the father. But now the father's gone. Now's the time that we've been waiting for. Now you'll see it coming. Now you'll see him responding with cruelty. And he will surely return to us all the evil and cruelty which we did to him. He will now turn on us. And Rashi asks, it shouldn't say Lu Yistamenu Yosef. Lu means if only. It should say pen. V'yomru, they should say pen Yistamenu Yosef. Oy, lest what might now happen is pen. It could happen now that Yosef will start acting negatively towards us. But according to the explanation of Reb Mordechai Goldstein, Lu is good. They're saying, Lu Yistamenu Yosef, if only Yosef would hate us. If only Yosef would turn and treat us with the same cruelty we treated him, we would feel a little better. If only he would stop with all this kindness. That's how we can be punished with kindness. That's how the punishment that we get can be an emotional punishment of busha, of shame, rather than the punishment of pain. And Hashem uses both. There are times when Hashem punishes us with pain, but he usually does that when punishing us with shame hasn't worked. When we just don't feel the shame. We're not aware of the shame, either because we're not aware that we did anything wrong, or because we did wrong and we thought it was right. And then he brings, if we don't feel shame and then we're not doing any tshuva, then Hashem brings physical punishment. Then I think Hashem brings pain. And then if we have the reflective ability, we're able to realize He's bringing us pain because there's something we could have and should have been doing right. During the Yamim Noraim, we can tend to get into quite a negative, depressive mode. And we spoke last year, and speaking again this year, that's something we should avoid, certainly at this time. When things are difficult enough, we don't still have to go into an oppressive and depressive mode. Yes, it's a serious time and we want to make changes in our lives, and we have to take those things very seriously, but not to get miserable and depressed. And I've asked the Baalei Tefillah also not to dwell on the Hashamdu Bagadnus on Yom Kippur. Just move through them. It's okay. We've got Slichot, we've got plenty of time to say Hashamdu Bagadnus. Just move through them. Yes, we all know we've got to do tshuva, but let's not dwell on the negative. And what happens sometimes when we dwell on the negative, we dwell on the difficulties we've had in the year. And we dwell on the fear of difficulties in the year to come. That Hashem shouldn't bring hardship, that Hashem shouldn't bring in ill health, chas v'shalom, to us or our family, that Hashem shouldn't bring financial and economic difficulty and hardship, that He shouldn't bring hardship to the country, to Eretz Israel, to the world. We focus very much on the hardship we want to avoid, and that's fine, that's good, but that feeds the negative cycle, that feeds the depressiveness. I'm going to ask you this Rosh HaShana Yom Kippur, these Yomim Noraim, to focus on all the bracha you've had. Spend the days making an audit of what Hashem has done good to you. You know, you'll find, if you actually do it seriously, you take out a piece of paper and you make an audit, you'll fill a full folio if you just look at one day. If you look at the year, you'll fill a book or a few volumes of what Hashem has done for you. And when you've really looked at what Hashem has done for you, the bracha, the good things, the kindnesses that Hashem has done, put aside the negatives. Okay, you've had some challenges, you've had some difficulties, some of us more, some of us less. We've had the difficulties. Everybody's got difficulties as well. But put them aside and focus on all the good things Hashem has done. And then ask ourselves, what actually have we done to deserve that? That's the place of tshuva. When we see the gap between what we deserve and what we received. Not why does Hashem do bad things to good people or good things to bad people. It's why does Hashem do good things to me, is the question. Do I really deserve that? Am I really that good to deserve the bracha that Hashem has given me? Look at all the bracha. And be careful, go into it in detail. List all the brachas, not just the big things, the little things that one has. And we're not aware enough of the little things that we have of bracha. But if you just take a day, one day at a time, and you review a day, and you say, what were some of the brachas of today? And you can start with big macro things. The fact that Iran didn't drop a bomb on Israel today. Rockets didn't fly today. I haven't seen the news, but I hope there were no terrorist attacks today. That's already a big chesed. The fact that the economy is working, the fact that I'm earning a living, the fact that there was a beautiful day, right? It was a little bit hot, but still beautiful. Birds singing outside, people, children playing around. There's beauty all around us. And just focus on all the good things. Put the difficulties and the challenges in a bag and put them aside. And focus on the bracha. And in focusing on the bracha, question our deserving of that. What have I really done to deserve that bracha? And that leads us to the shame. That leads us to the busha. That leads us to the lu yistamenu Yosef. Ribono Shel Olam, I almost rather wish you would punish me than treat me so beautifully and well when I don't treat you that way. When I ignore you. When I don't learn your Torah the way I should be learning the Torah. When I don't treat other people the way you treat me. You should be punishing me every day, and now you just treat me with chesed, kindness, kindness, kindness. You just feed me with kindness. And to be able to feel that sense of shame, of am I really deserving? And that's what we want to switch on the Yomim Noroim. What can I do to deserve the goodness? Not what can I do to avoid the punishment? That's usually what we think at this time, and that's why we get so depressed. That's why we get into the Hashem, we get into all these terrible things, and our Slichot and all the things we've done. And Rabbi Shalom, don't do terrible things to us. Don't punish us in return. Let's do it differently this time. What can I do to deserve the bracha that I've received in the past and the bracha that I'm sure, Hashem, you'll continue to give me in the future? What can I do better? What can I do different so that next year when I come, I won't feel as ashamed. I won't feel as embarrassed that you've treated me so well when I haven't treated you in the same way. And that way we're able to turn our Yom Tov into a slightly more positive spin, and to look at it from a more optimistic way and a more uplifting way than we might otherwise be able to do. To recognize the bracha of Hashem, to appreciate the bracha of Hashem, to celebrate the bracha of Hashem, and just to focus on ourselves in terms of what can we do from now on to make sure that we are more deserving of the unbelievable kindness that we receive from the world, from life, from our family, from our friends, from our community, from Hashem Himself every day of our lives.